Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. And it's a beautiful Saturday here. It's upsetting that baseball has come to an end, but we're in the beginnings of award season. We're in the beginning of rumor season, and we're in the beginning of my personal favorite Hall of Fame season. And we'll get to all of that and just more throughout the show. But we got to start off with the world champions. The world champion Dodgers. You know, they celebrated their first World Series parade since 1988. They celebrated the first win in the Shohei Ohtani, Yamamoto, Freeman era. But they're not done. And the reason I say they're not done is because the Dodgers had the fourth or fifth highest payroll in 2024. And reinforcements are coming, not just on the injury side of things, where they have Clayton Kershaw returning in 2025, Dustin May, and possibly Tony Gonsolin returning from injury as well to reinforce their rotation. But also they have announced that Mookie Betts, who was the MVP frontrunner at the beginning of the season, playing shortstop when he came back from injury, moved back into right field where he's been a Gold Glover, will now be playing in the infield yet again in 2025. And they said infield, and I think that means that they're hoping he will play second base and not shortstop again. A little bit less of a toll on his body. It's his natural position. He came up as a second baseman with my Red Sox, and he's shown at both second base, shortstop, and right field that he's an above average defender. Now, this is important for two reasons. It's important for two reasons because now that allows, you know, the Tommy Edmonds of the world, the Miguel Rojas, the Kike Hernandez. One of those guys might be the shortstop for the Dodgers in 2025. They've also been linked for multiple years to Brewers standout Willy Adames, who is now a free agent. So I have a good feeling that they are going to be in on Adames. I'm not sure if they're going to be the one that officially get him, but you know, if you have Adames and Betts up the middle next year for the Dodgers, that will not be shocking. But also, with Teoscar Hernandez being a free agent, with Mookie Betts moving to the infield, that leaves two corner outfield spots open. And we all know the big prize in this year's free agent class is Juan Soto. And the Dodgers would be fools to not make a run at him. I think that's why Shohei Ohtani deferred the large majority of his big contract, was so the Dodgers could continue to add legitimate stars to their payroll, to their roster, so they can not just win one. Like I said, now they're officially a super team, but if they want to be considered a dynasty, they need to win multiple championships. And just thinking about a lineup with Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, and Freddie Freeman at the top of it, four future Hall of Famers, should scare the living heck out of every single fan that's not a Dodgers fan in baseball. It would be unreal. The Dodgers are one of about a half dozen teams that I think legitimately will put $500+ million down on a check to try to get Juan Soto. I know a lot of talk's been 600+, and it might get to that point. But the Dodgers have two corner outfield spots open with Mookie Betts in the infield. And nonetheless, it was made official late last night that stud pitcher from Japan, Roki Sasaki, at 23 years old, will be posted by his team. And by being posted early, like Shohei Ohtani, he is not going to be eligible to make Yamamoto money right away in the major leagues. But Sasaki has been tied to the Dodgers this whole time. You don't get much of a better pitch to Japanese-born players than saying, come play with Shohei Ohtani, your Babe Ruth. Come play with Yoshinobu Yamamoto, the best pitcher that your decade has had. And they just won a World Baseball Classic together last year. So Roki Sasaki joining this Dodgers rotation almost guaranteed for not a lot of money still allows them to go get there and get Sasaki, who throws 100 crazy movement, and it allows them to pair him with Juan Soto in the same offseason. They could go back-to-back off seasons where they got Yamamoto and Ohtani, and then they get Sasaki and Soto. And that would just be absolutely insane. So the Dodgers aren't done by any means. I think they're going to be in on a lot of different free agents. I wouldn't be shocked if they try to bring a Teoscar Hernandez back or try to go and add another pitcher on the trade route or through free agency. A lot of people have been saying Max Fried, they could use a left-handed pitcher. He's going to cost a lot of money as well. But the Dodgers are going to make two big moves, and one of them is because Sasaki is not going to cost them that much. And the other reason is because Shohei Ohtani deferred a ton of his money. So those two things are going to help the Dodgers build on this super team narrative and push towards a dynasty. And man, is that great for Major League Baseball and scary for everybody else. The 2024 Gold Glove Awards were announced earlier this week, and it wasn't necessarily one for legacy because there was 14 first-time winners, including both Platinum Glove winners that were just announced last night. Cal Raleigh from the Seattle Mariners won his first Gold Glove and a Platinum Glove, and Bryce Terang of the Milwaukee Brewers won his first Gold Glove as well as a Platinum Glove, which has been given out since 2011 and is the honor bestowed to the best defender in each league, regardless of position. Only 4 players so far since 2011 have won multiple Platinum Gloves, but Gold Gloves rack up in the trophy case, and they're very, very important. Defense matters. And the legacy for this year's Gold Gloves really comes down to 2 players. Stephen Kwan has now won 3 straight Gold Gloves since entering the league. He is one of 5 players in history to do that. Now joining Johnny Bench, Charles Johnson, Ichiro Suzuki, and Nolan Arenado. Ichiro Suzuki and Arenado won 10 straight to begin their careers, but very, very good company nonetheless for Stephen Kwan and Matt Chapman, who has been overshadowed for many reasons over the years, including being in the National League now with guys like Manny Machado and Nolan Arenado, but he won his 5th Gold Glove over those guys playing for the Giants this year. He extended his contract with the Giants and is going to be a key cog for them down the stretch, but he got his 5th Gold Glove, which matters to me personally. Regardless of how you feel about the Gold Glove Awards, some of them are boys club and popularity contests. Some of them are very well earned. If you get 5 of those babies, if you're considered the best defender at your position for a half decade, that matters. And Matt Chapman getting that is huge. Another big shout out to Twins first baseman Carlos Santana, who at 38 years of age won his first career Gold Glove at first base and is the oldest position player to win his first career Gold Glove. The only players to have won a Gold Glove for the first time in their career at a later date were pitchers, and it was just amazing to see that from Carlos Santana, a guy who's had a sneaky great career and has been hanging around at a above average level for the last half decade. Like I said, Hall of Fame season is starting up, and it starts with the Era Committee. This year, the classic Era Committee, where they look at candidates that had their main contributions to the game before 1980, decided to release their ballot, and it is a stacked one. I don't see this very often with these Era Committee ballots because there's usually 1 or 2 guys that are kind of just on there as fodder. Every single one of these 8 candidates, 7 players, and 1 manager are deserving of the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. And that is just a special, special group of the ballot. Dick Allen, Ken Boyer, John Donaldson. It's just an amazing, amazing list of guys. Vic Harris, Steve Garvey, Tommy John, Louis Tiant. It is a great, great group of guys. And it's going to be interesting to see. I think the most important thing is who's in the room when it comes to a ballot that is this stacked, when there's 8 players that are all deserving of the Hall of Fame. Who is in that room pushing the narratives for these guys? Because Dick Allen, you look at him the last 2 times he was on an Era Committee ballot, he missed by 1 vote. He got 11 of the 12 votes. And I think that's important for those of you out there to understand. If you're not familiar with the era committee process, there's a ballot of 8 to 10 names, and there's a group of 16 former players, former press, former owners and managers that sit down in the room and they vote. And it's the same thing as the BBWA ballot. They need to get 75% of that room to say yes. So they have up to 3 votes each person, and you need to have 75% of the vote, 12 out of 16 votes, to get elected to the Hall of Fame. The last 2 times Dick Allen's been up in his era committees, he's gotten 11 votes. He unfortunately passed away right before the last election that he was in. I think otherwise he would have gotten in. They pushed guys like Jim Cott and Tony Oliva above him because they were both living, I believe. And Vic Harris and John Donaldson, the last time that they were on a ballot, Vic Harris got 10 votes out of a needed 12, and John Donaldson got 8. Both of them are very, very important figures in the game as well. Vic Harris is the Negro League's most winning manager and was also a speed demon player before managing. He had won multiple titles as well as 8 pennants. As a Negro League manager, I think he is extremely deserving and will get a lot of consideration from this group, regardless of who's in the room. John Donaldson is credited with the barnstorming era of baseball because even before the Negro Leagues were formed, he was pitching, and it is said that he has over 400 wins and over 5,000 career strikeouts. Now, not all of these were in official leagues, in official league play, etc., but he pitched for over 30 years and had an amazing, amazing baseball life, and he's going to get some consideration as well. But there are 3 living candidates on this ballot, and I think that's going to be where we see, if we only get one electee, I believe it's going to be one of these living candidates. Tommy John, who is much more known for the surgery than his playing career. He was a 4-time All-Star, 3 of which came after his historic elbow surgery in 1974. And it was amazing just looking at Tommy John's career stats next to Jim Cott. When Jim Cott got elected, I immediately said, Tommy John is now a Hall of Famer because Tommy John has more wins and a better winning percentage. Tommy John has more strikeouts, and he just overall, I think, was just as good of a pitcher, a pure pitcher, as Jim Cott was. They're both compiler guys. They're not high peak guys that won a bunch of Cy Youngs, but very, very good career. Tommy John, the surgery is famous. 288 wins is only 12 away from 300, which every 300 game winners in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in there. And it's amazing that he was able to start opening days from the 60s all the way through the 80s. He had an amazing baseball life for a bunch of different teams and, deserves a spot in Cooperstown. So Tommy John would be the guy that I think it's his time. He got very sick during COVID, and, he's a little bit older. So it'll be interesting to see how Tommy John fares with this committee. Steve Garvey just lost his Senate race over the election week, but he is up for the Hall of Fame. And Steve Garvey, it's been on a ton of ballots now. Will this be the year for Steve Garvey? I don't know, but him being a living candidate on a ballot where more than half of the candidates are deceased, I think does help him. And the other living candidate on this ballot, it's really, really interesting when you look at all of these guys and what matters. Dave Parker deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Dave Parker's been suffering from Parkinson's for many years. He's not been in good health. If any of you have watched the Dave Parker Cobra documentary, you could see he's, not the towering figure that he was during his playing days. And I understand that Dave Parker got in trouble for drugs. Dave Parker was not always considered the best teammate or the best friend of the media. But if you look at Dave Parker's peak and the seasons that he was able to put together and the story of the game, and you, as a Hall of Fame institution, want to prop up these living candidates and elect them while they're still here, this is probably your last chance to elect Dave Parker. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see who's in that room. Are they friends of Dave Parker? Are they foes? And will they, let those bygones be bygones and just vote the guys in that deserve to be honored while they're still with us? Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we had to throw it back down the third baseline to this day in baseball history. And there was a lot of different award moments here on November 9th in baseball lore. But we talked about Stephen Kwan's pace. On this day in 2010, Ichiro Suzuki won his 10th consecutive Gold Glove to win his career, a record that stood until Nolan Arenado tied it just a year ago. And man, Ichiro Suzuki, just for his American baseball career, I don't think gets enough credit. Much like Dave Parker had an absolute cannon for an arm in right field and can still sling it at pretty high velocity and in his older age, Ichiro, over 3,000 career hits in the major leagues after having over 1,000 hits in Japan and coming over at an older age. A guy who just flat out loved the game of baseball, flat out believed in putting the ball in play and not striking out, not taking walks either. He was truly a marvel and one of the last of his kind. Now that we talk about Luis Ariz being an average hitter and a guy who, doesn't have much power and just likes to put the ball in play and give good at bats and fight, Ichiro Suzuki was cut from that same cloth and is a guy who's going to be on the BBWA ballot this winter and will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But this 10th straight Gold Glove, even if he wasn't able to stick around and compile 3,000 American hits, I think was that final thing that got him over the hump for most people as a Hall of Fame candidate and was super special when Nolan Arenado tied that mark just a year ago. As we wrap things out down home this time, we're in the peak rumor season. So much so that you're seeing teams like the Tampa Bay Rays checking in with Juan Soto and all these different trade rumors and extensions and options and what can these teams do? Every single team believes that their team is about to have the perfect offseason and get exactly what they need. All I will remind you before we get out of here is that believe half of what you hear and none of what you see. Until the contract is actually extended from the team to the player and the player puts their John Hancock on it, there is no deal and it's still just a dream. So don't get too caught up in the rumor mill. I know it's a lot of fun. I'm going to be here as things become a little bit more concrete and, report on things. Next episode is going to be my free agent predictions. Once all the opt-outs and things are done, I'm going to predict on where these big names are going. Last year, I was able to get quite a few right, and I'm excited to see which ones I'm right about, which ones I'm wrong about here for the 2025 offseason. I'll be with you every step of the way on these Solo Shot Saturdays. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in this week. Orlando, Hugo, everyone that was in the chat, all of you that listen to it later, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and share this podcast with a friend that loves the sport of baseball as much as we do. I'm Dom Manna, and I'll catch you guys next time.